both my wife and I, we met in high school in youth group. So we actually met in church youth group. Back then it wasn't really, people don't try to say they meet at church and youth group. But we actually started dating in college and made it alive. And then I went to corporate, and then my wife actually worked at Forever 21. Does anybody know Forever 21? It's like a little fashion company. So she designed like over 100 products. She's a great sister. And then we're basically just saying like, what's next? Nice car, bigger house, cute puppy, and then we have kids. And then we actually left all of it to go over to China. So as you guys are here today, I don't know if you guys use memes, but when you guys are at NGO Go, you guys are probably all excited. You guys feel like you're like 10x your own personal strength. You're like, here, Mike, send me. I'm gonna launch this venture. But as soon as you go home, when you're by yourself, in your room, with your own thoughts, without everybody here, you probably be like, I'm not ready. And I think just mentally, just prepare yourself as you guys are here, right? It's like, we think of each of you guys as like a piece of coal. And when you're here together, everybody is super on fire and is super hot, right? So collectively, there's like all this heat in this room right now. Like, that's why we say strength in numbers, or better together. But when you go home, as soon as you go into your own room, your own thoughts, all of your other heats are dissipating so fast because you guys are now in different campuses, different states, and then you have different worries of the world, and so you become a dog with a tear. And so I think just mentally, as you guys are thinking about social ventures, there's going to be more times than not you guys are going to be on that right side rather than this left side. And it's really, really important to surround yourself with brothers and sisters that will journey with you throughout this very, very long journey of either entrepreneurship or social ventures. And so the goal today is want us to get alignment. Alignment is another good word to kind of just continue to explore. What is your head, heart, your hands? Or orthodoxy, orthopraxy, and orthopathy. I think a lot of times people say, hey, this is my belief, and I want to do social good. I want to have the best quadruple bottom line, people, profit, purpose, planet. But then when we actually get down to it, the behavior doesn't really match up. And so we want to try to figure out your beliefs, how you feel about it, and your behavior actually if there's good alignment. We'll show another graphic at the end of the presentation that kind of basically uses this as a Christian version of it. But as you think about these three lenses, maybe some of us are already doing amazing work, but what we believe and what we feel are actually very, very lopsided. Like, we're doing amazing work, but we really don't feel like it, and we really don't believe this is like God's will for us. Or some of us believe that there's this amazing work that God has called us to do, and we feel very passionate about it, but we have not kind of been obedient to pursue it. And so this head, heart, hands is an interesting maybe metric for each of us to evaluate. Are we all in alignment for each of those different pieces? So this is probably one of my life verses. I think as you guys go through this season of working with people and meeting different opportunities, it's really, really important to continue to figure out how to serve people better. And I think the sooner that we will learn and memorize and master this verse, I think the sooner that we'll all be in a better space. I mean, love one another. I mean, the great commandment, like, think about it. There's so many things that could be summed up in just through this verse. So as we think about others' interests before our own, we can even learn to carry each other's burdens. And it also correlates with all the love one another passages. So when you guys have a space, probably just even think about your own social venture. How's it being empathetic for other people? Because if you wanted to make profit, you don't have to do social ventures. The reason you guys are thinking about nonprofits because there's other things that are more important than just money. And so I want to quote one of my favorite friends, C.S. Lewis. Any C.S. Lewis fans? He wrote a few books. If conversion to Christianity makes no improvement in the man's outward actions, if he continues to be just as rude, envious, ambitious as he was before, then I think we must suspect his conversion was largely imaginary. Feelings, insights, greater interest in religion mean nothing unless they make our actual behavior better. And I think the key word I would highlight with my red laser would be kind of ambition. Just, I know we're all ambitious and we're all driven. I know all of us have multiple degrees. But what are we doing it for? The reason behind what we're doing, what we're achieving, needs to be reevaluated. I recently heard this one speaker. He says, "Andrew, do you tithe?" I'm like, "Yeah, of course we tithe." He's like, "Do you tithe pre-tax, post-tax?" And you say you have your own convictions around that. And then he said, "Well, what if I challenge you to tithe on your total assets?" Total assets, so not like annual revenue, like or annual salary or whatever, but it's like, what if you tithe on your total assets? Because then now you're giving 10% away of your entire, so it's way more than 10% of your salary. And he was just sharing that. I was like, she's like, "I'm just gonna put that rock in your shoe, and you decide how the size of that rock." And so today we're just gonna put little rocks in your shoes, and you can decide what to do with it. C.S. Lewis goes on to say, this book is from Mere Christianity. A lot of brothers and sisters read it from like kind of like when they first are in the Christian exploration season. The more we get what we now call ourselves out of the way and let him take us over, the more truly ourselves we become. The more I resist them and try to live on my own, the more I become dominated by selfish desires. It is when I turn to Christ, I give myself up to his personality, that I first begin to have a real personality of my own. Until you have given up yourself to him, you will not have a real self. And I think there's some maybe biblical references, dying to self. And it's really, really hard in, I think, the for-profit venture space, because basically you're trying to, I guess, be more direct, like be boastful, right? Because there's thousands of people out there, and you're trying to boast about why this venture is the venture that you need to pursue and why you're the founder to do it. And so I think there's just this song and dance for Christians to say, hey, I'm going to boast in God, and I'm going to boast in my weakness, and all of this is by the grace of God that has been bestowed upon me, that I can do these things through him. And so all of those are kind of just like the context, the backdrop. As we go into like the main set of content, I want to put this as kind of like the foundation. Do you guys know the Islam movement? The Islam movement is like missions movement. I started with Billy Graham, and it was in Switzerland, and then the next Seoul Congress, the fourth one, will be in Korea. But it kind of instructs us to think about wealth creation this way. We call the church to embrace wealth creation as central to our mission of holistic transformation of peoples and societies for fresh, ongoing efforts to equip and launch wealth creators to that very end. For wealth creators to perseverance, to diligently use our God-given gifts to serve God and people. And so it could be kind of your own personal tenets. As you think about your social venture, what are your mission, vision, and values? And there's this one other, actually, oil and gas company in Austin, and they're doing really, really well. And owner says, all of you guys will be given a certain percentage to give away every single month. Like the company will just say, hey, this is part of your salary, this is part of your package. If you choose to, you basically have a few percentage points every single month to give away your salary on top of what you're already making yourself. And if you don't give it away, it's fine. You can't get it anyway. But like these business owners are just basically saying, hey, they really want to continue to explore how to equip and launch wealth creators and to persevere, to diligently use their gifts to serve God and people, not just themselves. And as you guys think of your social ventures, I think some of us might have like this super idealistic dream. You want to find co-founder, or you prototype this idea, you find probably a technical co-founder, you raise some money, maybe from a foundation, from other social nonprofits. You do a second prototype, you raise more money, you have a beta product, and then you scale, and you have this hockey stick growth, and then you could go public, and you could exit, and you could retire at a beach somewhere. And so some of us might have this like dream scenario, this like desired outcome. But I think most of the time, this path will be a little bit different. It will probably be everybody saying, hey, we're at point A, we're gonna do point B, and then point C, we're gonna point D, and we're gonna live happily ever after. But I think in social venture life or nonprofit, it's probably more like this. You're constantly being rerouted. Like, oh, here's dead end. Oh, here's construction. Oh, here's too much traffic, so you have to go somewhere else. So I think it's really, really important just for us to have two different mindsets as you guys pursue social ventures and business as missions. And there's going to be times where your own personal character, everything else will be challenged. You're basically saying you're going to work extra hours for yourself because you have equity in the company to do social venture, and you want to work harder for less money. So I think for some of us, we just really want to discern, are we okay being constantly rerouted? Or some of us, maybe a more traditional path is just like, hey, this is my corporate career. This is what it looks like. And so I just do a brief introduction and bam. I think a lot of this is kind of like context. I'm not sure how much of the other speakers have already talked about it, but we'll just touch upon it a little bit, and then we'll move into some other stuff that's available in the ecosystem. I think it's really important for you guys to know what's already in the ecosystem, so you guys don't have to feel like you're reinventing the wheel. So there's
Andrew, what is BAM?
Oh, yes. BAM is business as mission. Business as mission. Social ventures, business as mission. So yes, that's really good to set the to define it. So importance of business as mission in fulfilling the Christian mission. There's key strategy between the sacred and secular divide. Earlier, we're talking about the 4 P's: people, profit, purpose, planet. Other people use economic, spiritual, environmental, social. And so when you talk about bottom line, people usually just think money, but because we're pursuing a business as a mission or a social venture, there's these other things that they pursue. Some people really might care the environmental cause is very, very important to them. And so there's a lot of companies now that are looking at their waste management. Even for clothing companies, there's a bunch of clothing companies that are coming out as social ventures to say it needs to be recyclable. Economic, everybody understands that one. And even here for spiritual, I think for Christians, this is probably the hardest one. If you go to the secular space and say, hey, I want to make a lot of money, nobody will bat an eye or think twice about it. You want to help the local community to do community development, transformation, good for you. You want to build a community center. You want to basically help the planet. Everybody will okay with steps 1 through 3. But then if you go to number 4, you try to talk about, hey, I want to help with the spiritual well-being, evangelism, discipleship. I think that gets a little bit tricky. And so just for each of you guys, as you launch a social venture, as you think about business as mission, like how much will this be part of the overall mix, right? Because do you put profit, is it 25% here, 25% here, 25% here, 25% here? Because you only have, let's just say, $1, right? Let's say you only have $1 to buy these 4 things. How much will you spend on each one? And so these 4 bottom lines will be like a countermeasure, counterweight for every single thing. It's a give and take all the time. A little bit, if you give up a little bit more economic profit, then maybe you can increase a little bit more social poverty alleviation. If you do that, so there's another interesting tension between these 4 different things. Okay, and then in terms of business incubation, basically, maybe you guys could just share, that way I just know what type of social ventures you guys are thinking about right now. Anybody just throw out 1 or 2 that you guys are thinking about. Anybody working on it, just share your social venture idea. Or your business plan.
Your project.
Your project, yeah. Yes? Sorry, say that again?
And child homelessness.
Okay, in child homelessness, wow, okay. Where?
In Kenya.
In Kenya, okay.
Fight food insecurity in Cameroon.
Fight for insecurity?
Food insecurity
Food
in
insecurity,
Cameroon.
okay, great, okay.
Fight malnutrition in the Congo.
Malnutrition, wow. All these are just small projects. We'll just get them done in a week. Pick up some Starbucks and then get some McDonald's and then in child homelessness and malnutrition and okay, so all of those things, basically, those sounds like pretty large scale projects, right? Like 2,000 hours or even 5,000 hours or even 20,000 hour projects. There's gonna be a time where you need to almost have this like proof of concept or even this incubation period to say, can we do this at the smallest scale? Maybe not the entire country of Kenya, but maybe there's a smaller city or even smaller part of the town that you could demo this project. And we want to incubate that idea. And so we want to incubate the idea of providing some type of innovation because there's many, many people already doing any of these things, right? Malnutrition and homelessness. Billions of dollars have been spent on these things, but how are we going to innovate with a Christian mindset, a kingdom mindset that's going to be different? and also because maybe our team will be made up differently. And of course, the spiritual aspect, how we're going to provide prayer for this pretty, all three of those different scenarios is like a fallen world scenario, right? Those things happen because we have not learned to think of others' interests before our own and have not learned to love one another. And so as we have opportunities, we try to say we want to make little proof of concepts or paper airplanes. So before you go out and spend all this money building a fighter jet, build a really simple paper airplane, maybe just kind of trying it out the process first. Maybe you could try it out, then you could scale it bigger and bigger. And so for your projects or different businesses, I think there's a lot of time for business as missions to secure funding. Because if you guys were the investors, right, or if you guys were actually angel investors or foundations, people are coming to you and you imagine you have $1 million to give away and you hear all these great projects. But you guys need to figure out like, well, there's 100 projects in front of me and I only have $1 million. I can't give to all of them. So now you have to decide. And there's just like a lot of song and dance. There's a lot of storytelling. And unfortunately, it's basically, you might have the best idea, but if you're not as strong in communicating, then it would be really, really hard to get the funding. Because maybe some foundations will see beyond kind of like your ability to communicate and just see the merit on its own. But most of the time, people have very short attention spans. And so if you can't communicate clearly, like your elevator pitch, I think your pitch is going to be about 5 minutes later. Then investors or even the foundations or other people contributing to your cause would not be able to catch your vision fast enough. So I think there's just some challenges there to consider. And also, what is the theological paradigm for you guys as you think about your project? As you build this company, what is like the wealth creation aspect of it? Earlier in the Lausanne Wealth Manifesto says is to persevere, to equip, and to launch additional wealth creators. And so also some of us might be operating in hostile environments. Different spaces in different countries have different political climates. And so social, cultural, and then also how to manage risk. And so all of us will have like different risk capacities. So I think it's really, really important, just you guys can also write down risk capacity and then risk threshold. So if I had a little candle here and I light the candle and you put my hand over it, some of us needs to be above like 5 feet, right? Like the candle's right here. Some of this is already too hot. But some of us could get lower and lower, some of us more comfortable with more heat. And so I think as you guys are working in a closed access country or maybe in a difficult project, you need to figure out what is your risk capacity and then what's your risk threshold. For each of you guys, you will have a different one. And so as you guys talk to each other, and I think in the nonprofit space or the for-profit space, like ethics and corruption is a very, very real one. If your Christian friend comes up to you and says, hey, we can accelerate this process by doing X, Y, and Z, and this is your Christian friend asking you to do that, and for the sake of your social venture, your enterprise, as a founder, do you go around that process? Or do you say, no, I think I need to do everything above board? And so everybody, there's a lot of gray area as you guys go into this space. And each of us will need to have your own, basically either advisory board or board of directors or some really, really good friends that you can basically, or maybe the mentors here as your sounding board to make sure, hey, I'm presented with different opportunities here. If I don't do it this way, it's going to take 3 more years to turn in all the paperwork. If I pay these certain things, I can accelerate the paperwork, and I could achieve my end faster. So there's a lot of things for you guys to consider, and many brothers and sisters have gone down that path, and there's a lot of personal convictions involved. And also, I think really, really understand that there's a lot of nonprofits, even non-Christians nonprofits have already been in different spaces that you guys are operating in. And so whenever possible, try to look for that collective impact, collaboration or cooperation. And so within the local country that you guys are operating in, either mission organizations or church networks would be great to plug into. Maybe share where some of the countries you guys are part of. countries. Just share the country you're from.
Tanzania,
Tanzania, Nigeria,
Kenya.
Kenya,
Congo,
Congo,
Cameroon.
Cameroon,
Togo.
Togo.
Togo here.
Yeah, I went to Benin and Togo. Yeah.
Oh,
yes. I ate
Just
some,
near, like, we share the border with Benin.
Yeah, and then I ate some fufu.
Oh, nice.
Oh, good.
That's all I got. That's all I just.
You're in now, Andrew.
I took like 5. I think I took like 5 vaccination shots. Fly 40-something hours. It was.
Yeah. There's a lot of mosquitoes over there and malaria sometimes.
All the time.
But yes, so I think even when we were crossing the border, because we were in Ghana, Benin, and then in Togo,
Yeah.
and there's just a lot of stuff that happens in the borders. And
Yeah.
a lot of stuff.
I know what you mean.
So, but even when we're there, we're saying, hey, how do we collaborate? Because I know there's already other mission organizations for churches that are already there. If we have a new social venture or a new idea, how do we come alongside and support them and collaborate together? Because if they already been in the country for 5, 10 years or 20 years, they already went through all the pain points, all the mistakes. They can almost tell you like, hey, don't do this, don't do this, don't do that. Maybe just accelerate what we're already currently doing. So as long as there's alignment in your mission and vision, it'd be great to collaborate together. These are just some different terms on franchising, funding, incubation, operating in hostile environments, and working with ministries. I think the main thing I want to challenge each of us is franchising. So if you think about the business as mission, the activation energy for you to think of the entire playbook. So imagine you're creating a recipe, right? Let's say, I don't know, name a really good local African dish. Just
Fufu.
Achoo.
Huh?
Achoo.
Actually, okay.
No, fufu, you have.
I won.
Okay, say fufu. If I wanted to create a recipe for fufu,
Yeah.
I think it's some type of yam or
Yam,
something,
yeah,
right?
boiled, after boiled.
They spend a lot of energy on it.
Yeah, sometimes cassava, yeah.
I don't know how to do it. There's no way for me. I could Google, I could use YouTube, but it would take a lot of time. So if I just ask my friend here, say, hey, what is your family recipe for fufu? And he could basically give it to me. It's already trusted, tested. It probably tastes way better than what I will come up with myself. And so I think franchising a social venture or franchising business as mission is not as attractive because you're not a founder. You didn't come up with this crazy new idea, with this crazy new venture. But all the pain points a lot of it has at least been minimized for you, right? And so if somebody in Ghana has created a really famous and popular fufu business, if the market environment and the similar sourcing could be had from Ghana, Togo, Benin, and then I keep going, Nigeria, if the West Africa spaces all like to eat fufu, and there's some operator that works in Ghana, and he's never thought about going to expand because he's been so busy just growing in Ghana, and you say, hey, I'll give you 5% to learn, to tell me everything you've learned in the last 10 years. That seems like a pretty good opportunity, right? Because instead of you making all the mistakes yourself, you're probably closing down your business because restaurant is like 20% success rate or something. So I think that the BAM in the box is something I really want to advocate for us to at least explore, to consider. You guys don't all have to come up with brand new venture, brand new project. There's so many people out there, and we'll give you some websites there's already resources that have already been created. So the National Christian Foundation has already funded some 200 ventures. The Impact Foundation has already funded, and so you could just basically go on their website. They already have a portfolio of causes, and by causes, by poverty alleviation, literacy, environment. So franchising would be just a encouragement for each of you guys. Did you guys remember Baller Who? He was here earlier this week.
Yep.
So him and I actually wrote a white paper at the Christian Economic Forum. It was about kind of this idea about BAM, franchising, and helping international students basically learn about it here and then bring it back to your home countries. So imagine you guys think about a social venture here, let's say in Dallas, Texas. We have a huge homeless, there's a lot of homelessness here in Dallas, Texas. And so there's a lot of social ventures that spend billions of dollars over the last 50, 60 years on this project. And they've done a lot of amazing things. There's an app called Our Calling, and you can basically look up Our Calling right now, and you see a homeless person on the street, you can say, hey, these are all the services. Churches, food shelters, medical clinics, whatever is around. And then this little app was so popular, the CEO of Microsoft actually flew down to meet with the founder. And so, what if we just basically brought that app over to Africa? I mean, there's this whole idea of just like, I want to be a founder and I want to launch another app. There's 3 million apps in the App Store, and so I just want to caution us from like having super high aspirations of like creating a new thing versus like franchising, and also because if the end goal is not you not to be a founder, but you to achieve the desired outcome of helping in child homelessness or malnutrition, then we should think about maybe different possibilities. So continue to think about holistic transformation, incubation, innovation. There's some funding challenges, risk management, and definitely collaboration. I'll send a deck to you so you guys can read this later. And the call to action for each of us is to join the movement, right? How can you guys join the business as mission movement? To think about the people, the profit, the purpose, and the planet. And as you guys think about your people, profit, purpose, planet, those are the different 4 bottom lines. How will you guys rank each of them? Maybe some of you guys are just not as convicted about the planet, and so you say, hey, purpose first, God's purpose first, and then the people, and then maybe the profit, and maybe sustainable, and the planet. And then you can also think about just educating and advocating. And so continue to think about the BAM movement. There's tons of different societies or discussion groups at the local college or even back in different countries, so we'll highlight some of those. What I want to do next is I just want to share what we did recently this last December through